Hello and welcome to Green Collar Careers, a podcast about environmental and sustainability professions. I'm your host, Jose Almanzar, and today I'm talking with Kim Alcantara. Kim is the head of legal at BetVictor, a UK-based online betting platform. In this interview, Kim discusses her journey to sustainability in a tech-based company, what she does as a head of legal to incorporate sustainability into her company, and she also shares ideas and resources for how people can enter the environmental and sustainability professions. In this podcast, my goal is to encourage people to enter or pivot into the environmental and sustainability professions. So why don't you settle in and go ahead and listen to this awesome interview from Kim. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I am honored and excited to have with us today Kim Alcantara, Director of Legal from BetVictor. She giggles because we were having a discussion as to how to best pronounce that last name. It's Spanish, but people in the UK say Alcantara and Alcantara. So I busted out my
You did. I like
Spanish.
it.
And Kim, how are you today? It's Friday. Happy
I'm very
Friday.
well. I'm so happy it's Friday.
What are you up to this weekend?
Oh, just chilling at home, I think. Hanging out with my dogs and cats.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a good weekend.
Just
So
spring cleaning, maybe.
tell us a little bit about your educational background and your professional background.
Sure. So I kind of moved around a lot when I was growing up around Europe. So kind of culturally, I would say I'm European, which I think I mentioned this to you when we spoke before. It makes Brexit very difficult for me. I'm still in denial. Doesn't really happen. And then I studied biology as my undergrad, which I loved. I loved sciences. I did science A levels. We do A levels in the UK. So I did kind of biology, chemistry, physics, actually. So I really enjoyed sciences and loved my degree. Just really wanted to learn more about it. And I still do. It's still my hobby, reading and science. And then at the end of my degree, you kind of start thinking about what you're going to do as a career, because I didn't really want to go into a lot of the options that I saw available to me with a science degree. So a lot of my friends went to go and do further studies. And for me, it seemed a lot like pipetting things into small jars, which I didn't really enjoy, or teaching was an option. And I didn't think I'd be good at either of those. So I went to careers fairs and talked to careers advisors. And one of the things they send you on is like, they do these tests and see what you're good at. And one of the things they suggested was a career in law. So went along to careers fairs, spoke to people, and it just sounded really interesting. So I looked up, I did vacation schemes, and then, basically ended up doing a vacation scheme at actually a US firm, and then got my training contract at the end of completing my legal studies. So I went and did the legal studies in a different college, and then trained to be a lawyer, and I didn't look back. I love it.
Did you ever consider being an animal lawyer?
Do you know what? I actually, when I was younger, wanted to be a vet. My grandfather was a vet, and that was kind of my passion. And then I realized it wasn't really for me. A lot of it is, vaccinating small animals or working with big animals, and it didn't really work out. But I do love animals. As I said, I've got millions of animals at home. So
what are their names? I need to hear.
Oh my God, I've got 6 cats and 2 dogs. If I go through their names, that'll be the whole of the podcast. No,
Wait,
I can't.
wait. You're hiding the lead here. How does, because we had cats. We had at 1.4 cats. Now we're just down to one. Yeah, now we're down to 1 dog. How does one end up with 6 cats, Kim? I'm sorry. I know this is not the point of the podcast, but I need to explore this.
No, I know, but it does make sense if you live here. So I live in the south of Spain, in a part of the world it's very kind of rural. They don't really look after animals particularly well, and so there are a lot of stray cats, a lot of stray dogs, and there's a lot of shelters that look after them. So you just acquire them all the time because you're really soft, and they're like, oh, you're an English couple, we'll just leave this cat outside your house, and then it just ends up on your house. So they're all adopted.
Fair enough, and you're doing a great thing. The cats that we had, 3 of them were adopted, and 1 was a stray. And I love them dearly. They were not a big fan of me. I think they saw me. I think they saw me like Shrek, the way that like the forest, creatures saw Shrek. he kind of just wanted to love them, but they didn't like him. So I think that's what the cat saw me as. So tell me, what got you? I know that your line of work at BetVictor, you're the director of legal there, and BetVictor, I should have mentioned this at the top. BetVictor is an online betting platform. It's not a sustainability company. It's not an environmental consulting firm. It doesn't manufacture widgets. It's a tech company. Did you become interested in the environment prior to BetVictor? Was it something that developed while you were at BetVictor?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been interested in it. Like I said, with my background in biology, I've always been interested in the kind of environmental science. So it's always been something that I've tried to incorporate. And, when I was at White, in case I was trying to do pro bono activity, I speak to a lot of people about it. And then I guess when I was here, I got speaking to, they had a charity committee, kind of CSR, and I got involved in that. And from that, I just, really passionate about something. And when that shows, I think it comes through and people jump on that passion and say, okay, go ahead and lead it. So I've been chairing our ESG committee for the last few years, and basically kind of, incorporating sustainability practices into the business, looking at getting the carbon footprint measured, looking at how we can reduce our footprint, and just really trying to change the way that we do business and how we engage with suppliers, because that's the biggest impact, right? But I'm not an environmental lawyer. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I just have an interest in it, wanted to learn more. And I think that, there's so much that we can do, particularly as in-house lawyers. You end up sitting, with the directors of the company. You're speaking to the board on a fairly regular basis. So you have this influence that maybe people in other professions don't have so much. So we have this great opportunity, and it just feels like it's the right thing to do, to use it, use those skills and kind of try and persuade people why it's important that we address these things in every business, not just in an environmental business, in all businesses.
So was there a moment when you were at BetVictor where something kind of clicked, or something went off in your head that said, I need to be a little more aggressive and push this envelope a little more? Was there a significant moment in your timeline there?
Yeah, I guess when I first kind of was involved in the committee, it was really about charitable work and kind of social responsibility, and I wanted to be involved in it. And then I think when they suggested that I chair it, that's when I realized I had this opportunity to restructure a little bit and frame it around the key components and align it a bit more with company kind of strategic priorities. So you're not just doing something on the side, it's much more integrated into what the business does. So you're speaking to the risk team, you're speaking to procurement, and you're getting those things changed within the business, as opposed to just having it as a nice thing that you do on the side. It's great that you do charity work. We should keep doing that. We all of the employees here get one day a year to use for any charity that they like an annual volunteer day. And that's amazing. And I want to encourage people to do that. But it's the business itself that you need to change. So I think when you realize you have that platform, then you have to take it. And that initial startup was quite intense, because my job as a director of legal is this was taking on another role, basically. So you end up doing two things and juggling a little bit. But the more that time has passed, I've realized that actually it is separate to my daily director of legal job, but it's also not, because your job in legal is usually advising on the risks of things. And if you're not advising the boards that you're working with of the climate change risk, then you're probably doing them a disservice. So you should be thinking about those things and how you report on them, because there's new legislation coming in. Maybe you need to tell the board about that. So there's so many angles that overlap with legal. And I think once I realized that and got my team a little bit more involved and kind of made it part of our overall objectives, then it's kind of settled in a little bit more now.
So what are some of the things that you've done, in your role as director of legal, but also chair of your company's ESG committee, to be more sustainable?
Yeah. So I always say I still feel like I'm at the start of the journey, really. I know you're speaking to me as if I'm some expert. I'm really not. I'm just someone who's interested in this and has got the kind of, I guess, the wherewithal and the notion to go ahead and do things about it. So the first thing you need to do is understand where you're at. You can't really create a path unless you know where you're starting from. So measuring the carbon footprint was a huge step. And we did that last year for the previous year, for 2021, and then we're doing it again this year. I'm currently in the process of gathering data. And that's a huge thing, to be able to say, this is where we are, and then this is where we need to get to, and then align that with we're based in Gibraltar, so align that with the Gibraltar's net zero strategy as well, and say, okay, well, we want to make sure that we kind of have targets and we're actually working towards them. But you need to measure, you need to have something to measure against first. So that's the first step, I would say, measuring. And that's big because you're actually doing something that you can kind of build on year.
Have you hired vendors for that, or is that an undertaking that the company has used internal resources?
No, we got an external consultant. Again, we don't have any experts in the field. We don't have people who necessarily know this. And I think I'm seeing more and more companies are engaging sustainability managers to do this, but it's still quite a new area, and there's not necessarily the right number of people to go around to do it. So yeah, I would recommend we got someone local because they understand the local businesses. So that if that's an option available to you, I would say that's a great place to start. But yeah, you've already probably got your whole day job stuff to do. So don't load yourself with more things. And the same with the reporting as well. Like, look to external people. They maybe have, some of these big professional firms have the skills and they have the capacity to do these things for you. So, use them.
In addition to carbon, there's a lot of other sustainability issues. With respect to the tech industry, which, you're I'm going to consider you an expert in that because, but because
I'm an expert in something, I guess.
and cats.
Cats.
Yeah. I'm going to change your title here, director of cats.
I think they're more a director of me. That's the problem.
So, what are some things that you feel the tech industry could do as a whole to be more sustainable or more progressive with respect to climate or the planet?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think a lot of tech businesses, certainly, a lot of people here thought this internally. Well, we're an online business, so what's our impact? We don't make anything, we don't manufacture anything, so we actually don't have a huge carbon footprint. And I think that's a response that a lot of companies will have. And so what you need to do, especially as a kind of in a general counsel legal type role, is persuade them that you do have an impact, that your office space, what you use as your data centers, those have huge impacts. Your employees, you maybe have several hundred, maybe even thousands of employees, and their personal impact makes a difference as well. So the people that you engage with, we should be looking at, where do you get your energy from? Are you able to switch to renewables? Are you able to speak to your supply chain? That's where you're going to have the biggest impact, your scope 3. So one of the things that I did, for example, was speak to all of the law firms, because it's hard for me to, we have a procurement team, so we work with them on the suppliers, but directly the law firms that we hire come through the legal team. So you can ask the question, and even just having that beginning conversation of, well, what sustainability initiatives are you doing? What diversity and inclusion initiatives are you doing? And it kind of forces the law firms who want your business to start doing that analysis themselves. And the more people start asking those questions, the more something actually will happen, and people will have to assess who they do business with.
I'm glad that you are using kind of your you can't influence the entire company. You are not the board, and it doesn't operate as a dictatorship. But within your circle of influence, you're able to kind of take incremental steps. And I think this is something that gets lost when people think about climate change and the impending, the moment, which is really difficult for a lot of people to grapple with, is that there's so many moving parts, and it seems so overwhelming when you think of everything that needs to be done in order for us to course correct the trajectory that we're under. And I think if everyone took your approach, which is, I can't change every tech industry. I can't change everything about my company, but you're at least taking steps to create some positive change within your circles of influence. And I think that's a really important thing that a lot of people should focus on. You can't solve every problem, but you can certainly address certain issues that come up within your space. So let me ask you, Kim, I'm getting a lot of feedback, and I'm hearing a lot of things from people that want to enter, the sustainability or environmental space, and either are struggling because they don't have the experience or just don't really know where to start. And I'm wondering, in your experience from the vendors that you've hired or just employees that you've hired that have been progressive and aligned with what you're trying to accomplish with the company, what are some skills and attributes that you feel are necessary for professionals who want to make, a positive impact in the environment?
So I'm going to be a bit controversial and say none, because I don't think that you need to have any specific skills. You just need to have the kind of passion to change it. So you don't need to be particularly good at reading. Obviously, I'm not good at either of those things right now. You don't need to be reading, writing. That's not what you need to do. What you need is the energy to go and do it. So it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what kind of legal expert you are. I think there's still an impact that you can make in some way. You just have to find what that is and follow it. So yeah.
So what are some things that you think, you're a seasoned professional and you are director of legal. What are some things that other experienced professionals you think could do who are at companies, at organizations, or maybe find themselves unemployed or kind of in this position where they're looking to pivot into a career that is a little more giving to the environment or
Yeah.
focus on sustainability? What are some things that you might recommend that they do? Or if you put yourself in their position, what are some things that you would do?
Yeah, so I can tell you what I did, because that's the experience that I have. And I said, I'm not an environmental lawyer. I don't have that kind of background. But when I realized that I was being tasked with this, being the chair of the committee, and I realized how big the challenge is, it's huge, right? So I felt like actually what I needed was some basic training and understanding of the problem. And so I attended the Cambridge Institute Business Sustainability Management course, which I could highly recommend. It's all online and it was amazing. And I can share details with you as well. But, something that gives you that foundational course, so you realize almost, because there's so much information out there at the moment. I think if you go online, I don't know about you, but my LinkedIn feed is just full of sustainability chat. So it can feel a little bit overwhelming. Like there's almost too much information. You're not sure which is the right stuff to be reading. So the course kind of focused my mind a little bit. And even doing a short course, there's loads of online courses just to distill all the information into digestible chunks. So you go, okay, that's what I need to do. And then I think, look about maybe joining a group that helps you navigate those challenges and share with kind of a network of people that have the same problem. So again, I joined a group called Lawyers for Net Zero, which I would highly recommend. And they've got a kind of program, a leadership program specifically for in-house lawyers, because we're in this key position where you have, access to change and access to boards to make decisions. And it helps you. You've got the kind of principles based. These are the things that you can do. And then there's actions coming out of that. So it really guides you in what are the things that you can do that have the most impact. And then you have the opportunity to meet other people who are also in, a variety of different industries, but with a similar desire to get into this and to make a change within their own organization. So I think realizing then that you're not in this alone, that there's loads of people. I met you through a LinkedIn contact, and actually that's amazing. You've now made a new connection. I think LinkedIn is an incredible tool to go and find people. If you see someone who's got an interest in a subject, maybe connect with them, maybe send a message. A lot of people maybe won't respond to it, but you're not going to know unless you ask.
I that's something that I preach regularly to young people who are starting their careers, or either recent graduates, or they've had maybe one job or a fellowship, and now they're kind of ready to fully enter into the workforce. And I say, listen, you don't have an established, deeply developed network, so go build it. And it may take you some time, and you may end up, the first job that you take may just be a job. It may not be the career making opportunity that you get, that you stay there for 15, 20, 30 years, but just do something that shows your commitment towards what you're trying to do. But in the meantime, build out your network, speak to people. I've found that, at least for me, I've been in the environmental space dating back even before I became an attorney. I was an environmental scientist for a few years. And I've been in this space for over 2 decades, and I found that, and I'm not just saying this because I'm in this space, but some of the most delightful people and the most fulfilled people are people
There's
that
the
work.
person who put their title as director of fun.
Director of fun. That's what I am. I'm the director of fun. You're the director of legal, the director of fun. And no, but in all serious, I find that people who work in the environmental space are some of the more giving individuals, and are willing to make time for people who cold email them and say, hey, and I've had this happen to me. It happens a few times a year, and I invite young people to do this. Hey, Jose, I saw your profile. You just gave a speaking engagement at so-and-so. Sounds really interesting. Do you have a few minutes to chat with me in the next coming weeks? I just want to pick your brain about some career ideas that I have. And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
And I try to answer to everyone and I try to make time for everyone. And usually I do. And I understand that Kim might not. She's the director of legal
No,
for
I will.
BetVictor. but chances are she will. And like you said though, can't be discouraged. Just because someone doesn't answer to you doesn't mean that they're not interested in helping you. It might be that they just didn't see your message. It
Yeah.
might be that their email filter didn't catch it.
Yeah.
It might be that they saw it, intended on responding, marked it as read by mistake, which I've done many times,
Hmm.
and then you forget about it. So then follow up with them in a
Yeah,
week,
exactly.
and be persistent. So is that an advice that you would give to young, to recent graduates that want to break into this space?
Definitely. And I would say if you're going to do that, be targeted about who you're speaking to. Find out about them before you send a message. Understand what is the question that you want answered and what they can provide as a response, because you don't want to just say, oh, I'd like some general advice about environmental law, because actually you can find that online. You want to know what that person can add value to, because I'm sure they can, but you want to make sure you're asking a question that they feel like they can answer and add value to as well.
I've had many meetings with young folk, and I'm putting myself in both spaces because I'm age ambiguous. You can't tell this. You can't tell my age, Kim, because I'm bald.
I'd like to say the same, but I'm not sure it's
And
true.
I shave. Well, you are. Yeah, I can't tell, but I shave my head, so you really can't tell. If I'm 25 or 55. But I tell young folk, like, listen, yeah, I'm happy to make time, but you're absolutely right. Come with some targeted
Mhm.
questions, and I'm also very tender with them, and I understand that sometimes they're either intimidated or they ask two questions and I answer them in the first 5 minutes, and then they have nothing else to to really say.
Yeah.
So I try to kind of say, what's some value that I could give to you? How can I help you achieve what you're trying to get to?
Yeah.
And I think it's incumbent on people like you and I, Kim, who have been doing this for a bit, to help uplift the next wave
100%.
of people. So I'm always encouraging professionals to make themselves available,
Yeah.
and use LinkedIn as an opportunity to uplift people who want to do good, because they may not find you unless you're out there saying something and someone shares or reposts something from your post. I do this twice a year, Kim. I put something on LinkedIn that says recent graduates, law students, or people interested in
Mhm.
environmental law, contact me. I can make office hours coffee, virtual coffee chats available. And I usually end up getting about 5 or 6 people that follow through on speaking with me. And
Yeah,
I might never hear from them again.
that's
But
really cool.
but I know that for those 30 minutes, they've gotten some good advice.
Yeah.
At least I hope. Listen, at least some fun advice. I'm the director of
It's a good
fun. So,
chat, right?
so Kim, so you mentioned the Cambridge, and can you repeat that? Because I'm going to put that,
Yeah,
put a link to that.
yeah, Cambridge Institute. It's called the Business Sustainability Management course. They also have a Sustainability Essentials for Business one. They have loads of courses actually. So they've got, leadership programs, loads of them. And I thought it was amazing. It was really engaged and really focused. The one I did was quite an intense 8-week course, required quite a lot of study. So dedicate the time to that. But if you can't, maybe do the short course first, see how you get on, and do that.
Okay, so you mentioned that one. Are there any other resources that you would encourage, again, experienced professionals who want to pivot
Mhm.
into the sustainability space, or young new professionals who want to do this kind of work? Any other resources that you've seen out there that you think might be useful for them?
Yeah, so I get a lot I get a lot of different sources. So what I've done is I've set my preferences on things like Lexology. I get news articles every day, but you set your preference to what you want. So go in and actually adjust your settings so you get ESG related information, because then I get my news every morning. It just comes in and I scan through them and click on the things that are relevant and share those with my team or read them in my own time. But kind of, it gives you a framework, and then you start to get an idea that, then actually loads of them are McKinsey ones and they do really cool reports. So maybe you'll go down that path and, favorite that page. So I have a lot of stuff on my LinkedIn because I interact with it. So again, the more you interact with stuff on social media with the kind of professionals, follow people who are interesting and talking about interesting things, then you're likely to see more about it.
So I have two email accounts. I have my actually three, my personal, professional, and then another email account for a website that I'm in the process. I've developed it, but I'm kind of tinkering in the background with it. It's an environmental justice focused website focused on environmental racism. And for that one, I have, and each different email has different Google alerts.
Yeah.
And I find that that's an easy way for me to stay on top of trends, and I can kind of pick and choose every day. If I want to spend 3 minutes reviewing stuff, I can just read the headlines. And if I really want to do a deep dive, usually there's enough content on each of those vehicles for me to get information.
Yeah.
Lexology is a great one. And I mean, there's so many. We have, like you said, there's such an abundance of information out there. So then,
So much.
kind of figuring out what you're interested in,
Yeah.
and then narrowing down and becoming really in tune with what's happening.
Yeah.
Almost on a weekly, at least on a weekly basis, if not on a every other day.
Yeah, because it's constantly changing. But actually, another one that I would recommend is if you go on a Project Drawdown, they have a website and they actually have targeted guides for each different profession. So there's a guide on there on things that you can do as a lawyer. There's a guide for finance. There's a guide for marketing, things that you can do in your business. So that's an amazing tool because their view is that we have the solutions already to address climate change. It's just a case of implementing them. So you can see ones that you could maybe share with people on a personal level as well, maybe eating less meat or changing the way that you commute, things like that as well. It's really cool.
So Kim, one last question that I wanted to ask you. So, this podcast is about encouraging and inviting people to join us in this mission, this kind of collective consciousness, this awakening that we've had to move the world forward into a better place, and to course correct a lot of the issues that we've created since the Industrial Revolution. And we started burning all fossil fuels and tearing down rainforests and degrading our environment. What are some final words that you would give to someone that wants to enter this profession, this sustainability profession that you and I find ourselves in, or who wants to pivot into it? What are some final words of advice or encouragement that you would give them?
So I'd say do it now. Don't do it tomorrow. Don't do it next week. Do it right this second. Like, do one thing now, because the minute you start, I think you end up in this kind of rolling ball where it impacts your personal life. It has mine, the way that you interact with other people, and you just almost can't stop because you get so excited and you realize, if like me, if you already want to do this, then you're already halfway there. Just get on and do one action, and I like that. Nothing's holding you back. You don't need to be, Jose's a professional environmental lawyer. I am not. I am just a regular lawyer, and I've got an interest in this. And you don't need to do anything special. You don't need to have any special skills. You just need to have the passion to go ahead and do it. So if you're thinking that, then you're already there, and just go ahead, reach out to the right people, connect, do something.
Kim, you're the best. You said it all. I could speak to you. I think I could speak to you probably all day. But you have very important things to do. Everyone, I just want to thank Kim on behalf of myself and all the listeners. Kim Alcantara, director of legal at BetVictor. I am the director of fun over here. Kim, thank you so much. You have a wonderful weekend with all of your wonderful pets. And I may try Vegan April. Might be tough. My wife's birthday is this weekend.
Try a week.
This
break it down into small chunks. Like, do a week and then see how you go.
All right, I might give that a shot. Thank you much. Thank you so much, Kim. And I'm looking forward to our next chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I hope you all enjoyed that episode, an interview with Kim Alcantara of BetVictor. If you like that, go ahead and drop a like, a comment, and a subscribe on my YouTube channel or any podcast downloading platform that you use. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Jose Almanzar ESQ, and on Instagram, Jose_environmental_attorney. Thank you, and may you all have a wonderful, blessed day.